Yeah, Brandis, with the company that seems to dominate so many aspects of American life, it's suddenly in a bit of trouble. Meta, formerly known as Facebook, has seen stagnant earnings growth, and its stock took a $230 billion tumble last Thursday, equivalent to about 26% of its value. Why is the company struggling all of a sudden? Can billionaire founder Mark Zuckerberg turn it around as he coaxes users into the metaverse? And what does it mean for the future of social media? Joining us to give us their take are Ben Zhao, computer science professor at the University of Chicago, and Jacob Furst, professor in the School of Computing at DePaul University. Welcome both of you to Chicago tonight. Ben Zhao, first of all, run down the factors here that are leading to big concern right now among shareholders at Meta/Facebook.
Well, I mean, there's a number of challenges facing Meta right now. Probably chief among them, the first time they've actually had drops in daily active users. So that's something that, you obviously like to see grow over time. That's a concern. There's also increasing expenditures spent towards building the metaverse and hiring engineers and so on. But probably the biggest one is the challenges dealing with the increasing sort of privacy controls on platforms like Apple, which are in turn limiting how much access to data that Facebook has and really affecting its ability to sort of data mine that data on users and provide better advertising.
All right, I want to go through some of these one by one now. So Jacob, first, one of the first things said there, the drop in daily users by about 500,000, that's still around $2.3 billion users around the globe. How serious a problem is that?
It's a very serious problem. This is an organization that has flourished on this "we must grow" platform, and to have sort of reached saturation in the user market, there needs to be a completely different way of thinking about what Facebook is offering, because there are essentially no more users. And so what do you do when you're not growing? That's the real question, I think, facing Meta.
And Ben Zhao, you alluded to this. Apple, its operating system on the new iPhones, basically asked users to opt in to allowing Facebook to track you, and that, as we know, is such an important component of Facebook's advertising apparatus. So tell us how impactful that's been.
Oh, that's huge. I mean, if you look at not just Facebook, but all the companies that really have a advertising model, right? Their lifeblood is user data. And for many years, users have either not really been concerned with privacy, or increasingly in recent years, not having tools to actually push back when they are concerned about privacy. So I think what Apple is doing is very interesting and really quite brave in a way to actually make privacy a feature on its platform. And in turn, that's really having a significant impact. Without data, there's no data mining. And no matter how intelligent your machine learning or artificial intelligence gets, you can only mine what you actually have. And so yeah, that's a really big concern moving forward, and it will be interesting to see how they can react.
And as Facebook has noted, most consumers on their phones have opted out of being tracked by Facebook, and it's a huge hit to their bottom line. Jacob, first, there's also TikTok, which Mark Zuckerberg has spoken publicly about how concerned he is over that company. Why is that company such a threat?
Because it's huge and has more users and more engagement. Why is that? Who knows, right? Is this the next generation rebelling against the previous generation's technology? Is it a truly superior platform? It's not clear. I think it will be interesting to watch Facebook's reaction, which is to try and copy TikTok. I think it won't ultimately be successful. But I'm not sure, Paris, that any of us really know why one technology takes off and another one, seemingly as good, does not.
And Facebook owns Instagram, and Instagram has started Reels to try and sort of copy what TikTok does. Ben Zhao, then there's also the metaverse, as you mentioned. He's sunk billions of dollars into building this metaverse, kind of taking the "if you build it, they will come" approach. Will people follow him into the metaverse and justify that massive expense?
Something like the metaverse and the virtual world, the VR world, has been talked about in lots of sci-fi books. And I think the metaverse and what Zuckerberg is pushing for is a real concrete step in that direction. I wouldn't say that it's a given that this is the right way to go. I think whether it's augmented reality or virtual reality, those are very, in some sense, complementary and yet opposed visions on how sort of virtual reality is going to affect our lives. And maybe they both succeed. Maybe one of them really dominates. Time will tell, I suppose.
It's certainly a gamble. Jacob, first, I mean, Facebook has been no stranger to controversy over the last few years, political controversy because of misinformation and failure to crack down. It's overcome challenges before, but it's lost about 33% of its shareholder value over the last week. Is this just a blip? Can they recover, or does this look more permanent to you?
To me, it looks more permanent. I mean, I'm not so concerned with a huge loss in shareholder value. I think more significantly, as Ben has mentioned, we have the loss of users, the influence of TikTok, and the reaction from Facebook, as I said, seems to be, okay, let's see if we can copy TikTok and pour more money into the metaverse. And I don't see that either strategy is actually ultimately going to succeed in terms of Facebook's future. Companies come and go, and this very well may be the point at which Facebook starts to fade.
Ben Zhao, other big tech companies, when they reach this point of having growing pains, they had to force out their founders. What do you think Mark Zuckerberg's future is at the company?
Oh, that's very interesting. You know, it's true. A lot of big tech companies, sort of in their rebirth, have leaned on new people to bring in a new vision. Well, I argue that Zuckerberg's shift towards the metaverse is really quite an interesting pivot, and perhaps that he's done it in time because he foresaw this shift in data and privacy coming. If he can make it, then I think you know, Meta really has a future. But it really is a big bet, and it's not clear what internally Facebook will do. Sounds like there's already some shakeup on the board as of recently. So, yeah, I suspect things are moving over there.
And Jacob, first, it's not exactly that as if Facebook can just get bigger, because it's facing significant antitrust issues. So what about those challenges?
I actually don't think much of those challenges. A bit of history here, right? When Microsoft was being faced with antitrust charges, and I'll say cynically, a Republican was elected president, and the charges disappeared. I'm fully in favor of the state and federal government seeking redress for whatever wrongs Facebook has done, but I think those are not what is keeping Mark Zuckerberg up at night.
Yeah, we mentioned the things that are. All right, a lot of interesting things to chew on, and our thanks to Ben Zhao and Jacob First. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Harris.
Thank you.